There are sounds in the wilderness that some would call both majestic and hair-raising. Sounds that can split through the crisp air of a fall evening. These sounds are the howl of wolves. Hi there folks, Spencer Remple the Moose Whisperer here, bringing you exciting hunting and outdoor adventure stories from around the world. And today's story is submitted by Ash Rempel and takes place in the beautiful mountains of British Columbia. Stay tuned to the end to hear more about today's author, characters, and area of this impressive and somewhat scary story. All right, here we go. The sound of howling wolves. Now, I've been fortunate to experience quite a number of these times over the years. On one occasion during an evening hunt, we had spotted a cow-calf elk pair out in the moose meadows, where normally you would only see moose. We watched them through our binoculars and we could tell they were nervous. They were looking behind and all around them with eyes wide and ears straight up. All of a sudden, the howl of a wolf rang out, answered by another and yet another. Those elk took off. They were running for their lives, I tell you, but they didn't stand a chance against those alpha predators. The elk ran into a strip of trees and willows, kind of a big clump of bush, and we heard the kill happen just as the cow emerged from the other side of that bush. I guess that's just nature working, and it can sometimes be brutal. There's a fine balance between predator and prey, and I believe hunters play a key role in keeping that balance. Unfortunately, there are just too many factors for nature to balance itself when people stepped into the picture. Now, this story isn't about people's views on that. It's more about a really cool wilderness experience. We were deep in the heart of the mountains and the wilderness of British Columbia. My hunting crew had just woken up for first light. We had a pretty good setup with a nice wall tent and a cook tent. It took a lot to get to where we were, but we were self-sufficient, experienced, and having a great trip. Coffee was simmering on the stove in the tent as we were finalizing our plans for the day. We had seen two nice big mature bull moose across the flats on the hillside the evening before. So we were making plans to see if we could get a glimpse of them in the morning and maybe try to call one in. This was some of the most beautiful moose country in all of British Columbia, and we were just so blessed to be there. Still dark, we jumped on our ATVs, loaded with gear, and started slowly moving up the rough and rugged mountainside. We made our way to a spot where we could glass from. This spot overlooked a vast landscape. Two of us were planning to hike into that area. Just as first glimpse of daylight began to appear, we heard it. The unmistakable howl of wolves. Now, this wasn't just one lone wolf. This wasn't just a small pack. This was a big pack of wolves. And even though sometimes one wolf or one coyote can sound like a pack, these sounds were ringing out over top of each other. There were all sorts of different howls and whines. No, there must have been a huge pack of wolves up that valley. We figured, well, there's definitely not going to be any moose hanging around here. There goes our plans for the day. You see, if predators move into an area, the prey tend to move out. Makes sense. Over the years, we had seen a steady decline in ungulates, a lot less calves, and increasing number of wolves and wolf sign. The year previous, we had watched a big, beautiful white wolf chase a cow and young bull moose along the bottom of the valley and up the steep mountainside. In that instance, the moose split in two directions and moved incredibly fast, leaving that wolf behind. What an amazing thing to watch. Well, back to our story. We said, okay, here's our opportunity to help out that balance. We're going to go up there and see if we can blast one of those wolves. The valley started up a big alpine bowl rimmed by giant mountains and worked its way down through the timber to the beautiful moose meadows. It had one very well-used game trail heading up the middle and a couple others that came in from adjacent valleys. This was a thoroughfare for moose and elk. 3 of us started up this trail. It sounded like the wolves were about a kilometer ahead. The wind was blowing down the valley, so that would work in our favor. We made our way slowly up the trail. We saw splayed out tracks of multiple moose leaving the valley. Everything that could was getting out of there. If you look at a moose's hoof, there are 2 big dew claws on the back of the foreleg. They provide traction and stability for the moose. Man, they had run out of there. We could tell by the tracks that they were slipping and sliding and running with dew-claw skid marks all over the trail. Those moose are probably still running. Well, we kept working our way up that trail, and now those howls were getting louder, and it wasn't just howls, it was yips and snarls. It sounded like those wolves were fighting each other. We thought maybe there are 2 packs of wolves that are battling for territory. Well, only one way to find out. Let's keep working our way up the valley. We got to about 100 yards and we were going slow, just waiting for a glimpse. We kept slowly creeping our way up. Now we were about 75 yards away. We stopped. The howling, yapping, growling noise that was coming out of that thick clump of bush, man, it made the hair on the back of your neck stand up. Now we could see flashes of movement on the sides of the trail and the brush, but we figured any second we'd see one come out or cross in an open area. We were all concentrating, so we kept moving. We were about 50 yards or maybe even less from where the main action seemed to be. If only we could just get a few yards closer, we could probably see into the opening on the right-hand side. Just as we were about to make those last few steps, the loudest, spine-tingling roar erupted from just ahead of that open area. It was the guttural roar of a very angry grizzly bear. Everything went silent. We looked at each other and without saying a word began to take step backwards with all our guns covering us. There was not a sound from those wolves. I don't know where they went, but they shut up and left, just like us. We got out of there as quickly as we could. And we were about a half a kilometer from the scene when we heard the wolves starting to howl again. But this time they were probably a good kilometer up the valley away from that area. So it seems like the grizzly was the king of the mountains on that day. Man, we wish we could have seen that all play out. But just being able to hear it was something else. A couple of days later, we were back in the adjacent valley on one of the trails that headed in the direction of Wolf Valley. And there was a set of giant grizzly tracks, the size of a dinner plate. Yeah, I'm pretty sure leaving was the right decision. That's what I love about hunting. It's not always about just hunting. It's outdoor adventure. And some of my best stories were times when I never shot anything. Thanks, Ash, for that wonderful story. Ash Rempel is a 48-year-old, very accomplished hunter and hunting guide. He grew up in the remote and isolated location of Hauser, BC, where hunting, fishing, and trapping were not only the things he loved to do, but the only things available to do in that area. Eventually, work, women, and family brought Ash to the city, but he never lost his bushman roots or his skills for the outdoors. Long weekends find Ash camping, hiking, and fishing with his family, while in the evenings he's planning future hunts with his like-minded group of hunting friends. Proving you can take the boy out of the country, but you cannot take the country out of the boy. Well, that's one of Ash's stories, and you know what? I'd like to tell yours. Send in your hunting or outdoor adventure stories either by email or voicemail to info@themoosewhisperer.com. Thanks for watching, folks, and hey, more stories to come.